All right, well, welcome everyone to Ensuring Green Builders Are Industry Leaders, Housing 2.0. This course is brought to you by the Green Home Institute. The Green Home Institute is a nonprofit with a mission to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. Today, I'll be your moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I am the program manager here. As always, like all of our courses, this is approved for multiple continuing education units, as well as our own internal certified green home professional program for all 5 pillars of green, as well as submitted for AIA, health, welfare, and safety, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. A membership benefit alert for all of you who are members, who become members by the end of today, you are entered into a drawing to win a copy of the book, Housing 2.0, A Disruption Survival Guide, as well as free access to the 6-part series on Housing 2.0 with Sam starting in May. So you can check that out, and among many other membership benefits, along with supporting our mission there at greenhomeinstitute.org/become a member. And before we get started, I need to say a huge thanks to our top tier sponsor, April Air. Help your clients stay healthy, humidity control, temperature control, air purity. Water efficient humidification systems are a win for water conservation while staying not so dry in the winter, which we know can help aid airborne viruses when the air is dry, something we don't need right now. Also, you've got energy efficient dehumidification that pairs with the right size heat pump that can keep the air feeling cool while setting the temp higher to still save energy and feeling good in the home. MERV 13 plus filtration captures the particles of growing concerns such as airborne viruses, PM 2.5 that unfortunately we're all now experiencing from wildfire smoke as it gets warmer, VOCs, dust, and more. So check them out over at aprilair.com. Thanks to our second tier sponsor, Great Lakes Passive House Supplies. They offer a simple concept, a frost protected shallow foundation, ICF, with an air heated radiant floor system. The radiant heat system circulates warm air through a network of air piping cast into the insulated monolithic concrete slab foundation, which is custom engineered to building specifications. The GeoSlab insulated concrete slab foundation provides optimized thermal mass for heat storage delivery throughout the building in a controlled manner, providing comfort economically. You can contact Eldon Howie there below to learn more. So with that, I want to welcome our speaker today and hand it off to him, Sam Rashkin. Sam, I think this is now your 3rd time on the show. You were originally here with your hat, wearing your hat from the Department of Energy, talking about the Zero Energy Ready program. So it's really good to see what you're doing now and see you on the other side. And please take it away and welcome. Perfect.
Hey, welcome everyone. And I'll give a few little nuggets about my background in a few moments, but what I do want to emphasize at the very beginning is for the past 27 years, I've been dedicated to moving the housing industry to high performance, green, zero energy. You pick the term, but it's been a huge privilege to work with thousands of home builders and with these great national programs and just make so many friends from all facets of what it takes to put a house in the ground. Now I'm dedicating all my time post these national programs to making sure that the green, high performance, zero energy builders, in fact, become industry leaders. So that's what this session's about, the future of housing and how green can prepare to become industry leaders. So the outline moving forward will be, what is the origins for this whole vision for the future of housing? So I'll talk about the origins of a lot of this content. Then I'll talk about the fact that disruption happens. And more importantly, when it does, you have to adapt or be left behind. Then we'll talk about, well, if disruption happens to housing with certainty, not if, but it does happen with certainty. And why, again, this vision is such a clear way to connect dots that point to where we're going. Then lastly, if disruption happens to housing, how can green adapt and not be left behind? How, in fact, can I meet my purpose, my vision for green becoming industry leaders? So that's the outline for today. It's going to take probably a little bit longer than the time allotted, so just be prepared for about a 10-minute extension. So let's start with the origins. Where did this future of housing come from? And essentially, as I mentioned, I've been working for over 26 years prior to leaving the Department of Energy with national programs, first with EPA with Energy Star certified homes. And we grew that to now over 2.5 million certified homes. But when I began that program with an amazing team at the EPA, we finally got traction and grew. And I was forever on the road training builders and helping them move up each level of our specifications when a lightning bolt hit me that there was so much more to making these builders successful than what I was doing with just the Energy Star label. So that begat this whole effort to write my first book, Retooling the US Housing Industry, How It Got Here, Why It's Broken, and How to Fix It. And it was my first attempt to cobble together a lot of opportunities to take housing to the next level. And I had an accidental research project for over 5 years where we would bring over 20, 25 builders around a table for 2 days, and we vet the ideas, we get great feedback, introduce ongoing research, rinse, wash, repeat for over 5 years. And then coronavirus hit, and it gave me an opportunity to turn lemons into lemonade with finally an amazing window of time to package the vast learnings from all that experience and research into Housing 2.0, a disruption survival guide, about 80%, 90% new content from the first book, and so heavily more research and informed by builder feedback. So that's the origins of this. And Brett mentioned the book, where the first book was a couple hundred pages. This one's over 420, hundreds of graphics, where the first book maybe had 50 citations. The second book has over 360 citations, plus these amazing thought leaders contributed guest expert essays after each core chapter. So it's an amazing compilation of everything I've been able to learn engaging the housing industry with these national programs. So that's the origins, and essentially it's kind of a learning system. Every learning has first 3 core elements: context, why is that learning important? Concepts, what are the key principles that basically underlie the guidance provided? And skills are the best practice for applying the guidance. And all that's provided in the book and the workshops that Brett mentioned. But then we also have these working action groups, small groups of builders and architects that get together where you finally learn by doing. Because as you know, if you take, let's say, a golf lesson and don't practice, you'll probably get no benefit from the golf lesson. But if you go and diligently apply the skill you learned, you'll learn by doing. So that's what the action groups are intended to be. And then continuous improvements about bringing amazing experts to keep building and evolving a lot of the concepts that we developed and sustain the excellence of everyone involved. So that's the system I work with, and that's the background and source of a lot of what you'll hear today. So let's begin with disruption happens and adapt or be left behind. And I like to start with this turn of the century example from the early 1900s. You had 2 choices for personal transportation. If you wanted to be mobile, you either had to use a horse and buggy or an automobile in 1903. And if we look at one example of a city street in 1903, Fifth Avenue, Easter Day Parade, New York City, it's a stunning example that the predominant choice for consumers in personal transportation was a horse and buggy. And here's the lone automobile on that Easter Day Parade. But fast forward 10 years and everything flips. The predominant choice transitioned to the automobile in 10 years. Something happened so that, in fact, the only lone horse and buggy in the street is depicted here. And this is a stunning, rare example where 2 photographs show you disruption visually. And that's why I love to use it so much. And the question is, why does that happen? How did that happen? And there are, in fact, 2 conditions. The first is there has to be some driving force for change. And typically that will be a problem that needs to be solved and or an opportunity to improve the user experience. And so that's the first condition. And the second condition, there has to be some innovation, some solution that solves the problem, some solution to the problem, or a substantial improvement in the user experience. And a note here is that disruption hyper accelerates when a problem becomes a crisis. And so let me show you a picture from a show HBO just put out, The Gilded Age. This is New York City, 1890s leading up to 1903, and it's pure Hollywood fiction. This is a street in New York that has no problem. It is pristine, it's clean, it's unbelievable in terms of what it's showing you, just from the sense of just good Hollywood visuals. But essentially, this couldn't be further from the truth. Every big city in Europe and the US was having an environmental crisis, in fact, at this time. And the streets had this huge challenge because there were 100,000 horses in New York City at the time of that picture of the horse and buggy. And they produce over 2.5 million pounds of manure a day, probably the same amount of urine. And that led to a user experience crisis. Visual experience every day was just a horror show, the odor, and then the health, the epidemic of disease was just off the charts. So we were in the midst of this amazing crisis, disruption accelerates, and that's why things happened. And here's a 1903 automobile, and all that represented was a partial solution. Cars don't poop, which is great, but at that time, the car was a far inferior user experience. Incredibly high cost, very slow production, driving was clunky and awkward, and the maintenance was horrible with all these customized parts, very few businesses that provided infrastructure to fix the cars. So this was not going to have any kind of significant market penetration. You're never going to go from early adopter to the mainstream users when this is the user experience. It can't happen. But then the innovation that you all know about happened. The assembly line, 1913, solved the problem. Cars don't poop, and the assembly line allowed this far superior user experience. First of all, 85% cost reduction from 1908 to 1926, the ease of maintenance with all the standardized parts, the enhanced drivability with all the expertise that can be infused when it was going to be amortized in terms of cost over such a large number of vehicles. Everything was better about the user experience, and thus you had the complete disruption in the industry. And in terms of being left behind, there are so many players that if they didn't adapt would just be out of a job. So veterinarians and caregivers for horses, the horse exchanges, the horse and buggy carrier businesses, the feedstock businesses providing horse feed for cities, the stables themselves, the carriage shops, and the workers who had to manage all that horse poop in the cities. I mean, all those people, if they didn't adapt, were out of jobs. So this is just an example of how disruption happens. And now we have the next wave of disruption for the automobile industry because cars have emissions, and now those emissions have evolved into a crisis. And so the EV has no emissions, and it has this amazing superior user experience. About 60% lower fuel cost, plus probably about the same amount lower maintenance cost, plus enhanced drivability. You know, the battery is low in the center of the car. It's like driving on rails, quiet, safety, and right looming ahead is hands-free driving and wireless fueling. This is amazing. I encourage all of you to talk to any electric car owner, particularly a Tesla, and you're just, the passion, the enthusiasm is off the charts. But of course, even this car has an issue looming ahead. What do we do with batteries in terms of the future landfill problem? So every innovation has further innovation and evolution that you can count on. But you get the idea, disruption happens, and now I'm laying out a vision why disruption is about to happen to housing and with certainty, and how that all works. So why does it finally happen to housing? Well, there's a problem. More importantly than a problem, there are 5 crises converging on home builders and the industry that are driving incredible pain. So we've gone beyond problem, we're well into crisis phase and tremendous pain. Then we have 4 market-ready innovations that can relieve the pain. And lastly, we have the disruption. And what I speak to and document and tabulate in my writings is the amazing opportunity for better homes for lower cost. In fact, if you add up all the tabulations that I'm able to calculate and research and document, it's almost 30 to 70% of cost savings and added value per home. This is a stunning opportunity. And it's always amazing to me how, as an industry, we're so overwhelmed trying to manage the crisis du jour or crisis du decade that's going on right now, when in fact we have this opportunity. So let me lay it out for you and see if you agree with this vision for the future. And so the 5 crises I'll speak to very briefly, because this is a 2-hour presentation shortened into about an hour. User experience readiness, lack of affordability, trades, productivity, and we're just not digitized as an industry. So these are crises, and I'll explain why each of them are. First, user expectations are growing exponentially. Users are so much more informed. No one goes shopping for a home without doing much more research and gathering much more available information on websites. And so green is not enough. Zero energy, health, all the aspects of green are just not enough. People also care about the community experience. They care about daylight and fresh air, outdoor living, storage, smart home capabilities, work at home capabilities, advanced lighting, color, and I can go on, and I do over the 400 pages of Housing 2.0. The user experience expectations just have to be managed. And if all you do is green and don't also just nail and crush all these other experiences, you're not as positioned to be an industry leader. And it's all evident when I go and look at the plethora of growing peer review websites with 5-star ratings for builder. And this is a sample. I had to redact almost 80% of the information here because I don't want to get in trouble with the builders who are low ranking builders. But you see some builders are 1-star, some are 2-star, and then there are a couple that are 4 or 5 stars, so 4 or 4.5 stars. And what you have to ask yourself, no matter how green my home is, if the designs, the comfort, the community, all the aspects of living and health and technology, if everything is not embedded in that living experience for the homeowner, you're not going to get a 4 or 5-star review. And how can a builder who's 1 or 2-star builder compete with a 4 or 5-star builder when the product costs $500,000, $600,000, $700,000? My wife and I go into a new community, we'll look at the restaurants on Yelp or TripAdvisor, and we won't go to a 3-star restaurant just for an $80 meal. And if we're going to pick a hotel, we won't pick a 3-star or lower hotel just for maybe a $200 a night stay. What are we going to do when it's time to make a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 purchase? You have to deliver this user experience. And this is why I call it a crisis, because when you look at these websites, you'll see about 80% plus are in the 1, 2-star range and 3-star range. We're not delivering the expectations home buyers expect. That's a crisis. And you see I'm tabbing across the top here. I'm going to tab to the next, affordability. And so on the affordability crisis, I first like to start to show you where we live in the US. In fact, 70% of the population lives in less than 20% of our land area. These population centers are called megapolitan regions. And you probably could guess where they are, but here they are. And I want you to hold on to this visual for a second, because I would then want to show you first, where is housing affordable and not affordable? And I marked the threshold recommended by the National Association of Realtors on a kind of a color graphic key at the bottom. And anything that's kind of light orange to dark orange is not affordable. And I now superimpose those 11 megapolitan regions on top of this map. You see virtually where we live is not affordable, except for maybe the Gulf states and the Midwest. The growing inaffordability is stunning. And this is 2017. And we all know what has happened from 2017 to 2022 today. The increase every year for housing has been 15, 20% or greater, as has rent. And on top of that, interest rates have gotten higher. I mean, it is a stunning lack of affordability for the American home buyer. And we see it in all the metrics. You know, the 40% of Americans can't pay an unexpected $400 expense. So households can't even manage the expenses that come up. 80% of workers nearly are living paycheck to paycheck. Again, house poor indications. And maybe a kind of a side metric about the 7 million Americans who are delinquent on their car loan payments is a stunning reveal about also how house poor we are, because we have been close to this number. Even during the Great Recession, there were only 6 million Americans who were delinquent on their car loan payments. So something is truly hurting Americans' economic well-being, and the first culprit is housing. And the other thing I want to point out is the most critical buyer, that young buyers are the most challenged when it comes to affordability. They have this huge debt, $1.6 trillion of student loan debt. They graduate college with a mini mortgage when they even first start beginning to work. Also, they're spending money by preference on experiences versus savings. So a staggering number of younger buyers aren't even saving anything on a monthly basis, and they're more worried about the jobs. Job volatility is getting greater and greater as automation and robotics is just destroying the number of jobs in so many different segments of our economy. Wages have not increased for about 40, 50 years net. And the recent gains that we've been getting have been wiped away by the inflation. And then the housing prices have inflated while their wage benefit they get has not increased for about 30, 40 years. So this is just a crushing amount of force against their affordability for young buyers. And so as a result, we see more households are renting than any point in 50 years. If we look at the average rents, they increased 14% last year, with some cities like that are hot cities to move to, like Austin, New York, Miami, increasing up to 40%. Rents are just going through the roof. So no part of the housing market, rent or ownership, is really affordable right now. And when you look at the widening gap between the median home price and the median income, this is really alarm bells going off all over the place. Here's these kind of downturns in the economy. Here, the most recent 2007 to 2010 over here. And you see this gap is not sustainable. We cannot keep raising prices and have a household income that's not able to afford the price. The average income needed to afford a home in 2021 was over $144,000, which is over 2 times the median income at that time of $69,000. So Houston, we have a problem. And this is why for such a long time I've been forecasting this downturn. Now, at some point, the industry that's been propped up by the amazing shortage of supply and the incredibly low interest rates, that is going away. And we already see interest rates are going at incredibly high levels, over 5%. And we're going to see a fear factor drive a lot of people to put their homes in the market to grab these high values before they go down, probably within a year, although I already have in my other slide decks, I show some economic reports that's already starting to happen. So enough about affordability. You kind of get this, and I think everyone knows that affordability is just crushing the industry. On top of that, the trade crisis is stunning. It affects every aspect of how we engage with the trades: the cost, the availability, the recruitment to replace the tsunami of people retiring out of the trades as they get older, the resulting quality challenges from the new workers coming in, the lack of training, lack of productivity, the excessive waste. Every builder knows these. In fact, you see when survey after survey, I've been tracking them for over a decade, they only get higher and higher. And now 85% of builders expect costs and labor to be by far the biggest problem they face. So this is just something we all know, and the data just backs it up. Moving across the top to productivity, I always like to show the automobile's productivity gains visually and then compare it to housing. So here's a 1903 assembly that I showed you earlier. Some back room, cars were cobbled together by a single person. It was incredibly primitive, and as a result, the industry couldn't grow. But then the assembly line came along, and car just took over as the transportation option of choice. And we look at how cars are made today with robotics and automation and just amazing digital technology capabilities. It's stunning, the innovation the last century in car production. In contrast, here's a house in 1877. This is from the Smithsonian Archives. It's a wood frame house on the Omaha Reservation. And I will ask you to compare that 140 years later to how we build a home today. And first thing I want you to know is just the way all the waste and product was strewn across the ground. You look at this site in 2021, and you see the same product and waste just strewn across the ground, which is your first indication there's just massive waste going on. But when I ask people to identify what are the innovations that we've experienced and how we assemble enclosures in 140 years plus, and you run out of innovations after going from balloon framing to Western platform, from dimensional lumber to engineered lumber, maybe better connections and power tools. But it's just a stunning, remarkable, glacial set of gains in housing productivity over 140 years. And the data backs it up. In fact, over the last 3 decades, housing has actually declined in productivity, where virtually every other industry has gained. Here's manufacturing, which is 1.7 times the productivity compared to housing. This is from one international study, but when I take a McKinsey study, no, this is from World Press. When I look at another study that was done that looks at manufacturing processes to construction processes, how much they contribute to value or don't add any value, or just basic support activity, what I'll show you that's not sustainable is 62% of manufacturing process adds value, only 10% of construction process adds value. And so McKinsey quantified this in a very impressive and detailed study. And for the entire construction industry, it came out to a $200 billion labor productivity gap compared to what it could be with 21st century methods and prefabrication and robotics and automation. This is just, again, when housing is that unaffordable, you cannot give up this much productivity gain in terms of value. And the last of the crises I want to point out is the lack of digital technology in our industry. And that's important because when you digitize with data and software and technology, that solves problems, and it also delivers incredibly better consumer experience. You can look at virtually every other digitized technology. When we went from taxis to Uber drivers just by adding data, software, and technology, now we can get a ride at, just on our phones and know when it's going to come. We know what it's going to cost. We know the driver's rating. We can get the car we need for a larger or smaller group. We can share for lower cost. When you look at all the efficiency gains and experience improvements with digital technology in every other industry, it is just too much to be giving up. And when you look at the results of another McKinsey study on just comparing how much each industry is digitized, housing is the least digitized except for agriculture and hunting. So there's construction at the very near bottom. And the way the graphic works, if you want to just visually understand this, is you have very high digital applications if you're light green and dark green, and incredibly low if you're orange and light orange. And virtually everything construction is dark orange and light orange. It is completely undigitized. There's some niche applications that give you only a minor percent of the capabilities of digital technology in the housing industry. And so when you look at a car is completely made on the computer first before they ever build it in a factory. They know the exact list of every part, how all the integration of different systems. They know about how it's going to be produced. There's everything understood. So when you go to manufacturing, there's hardly any uncertainty. It's a perfectly constructed product on the computer before it goes and gets made in a plant. It's built virtually first before in real time. In contrast, you look at construction documents, and they're incredibly primitive, hardly improved from 100 years ago, except blueprint technology allows us to print them better, but they're not designed for the trades and not designed to enhance productivity. There's so much uncertainty when you get to the field to figure out exactly how everything fits together. In contrast, we can use building information modeling, BIM, and do exactly what the car industry does. This is available today to digitize homes, and the integration of systems and all the benefits are faster, better, cheaper. The cycle time, because we can make it and assemble it so much quicker once we build it first virtually. Automated bill of materials makes it faster when we bid the projects. Automated scheduling, when we run the projects, make it faster. We have better quality, accuracy, system integration, machine learning, and it's cheaper because it's more efficient, less waste, and less rework. This is what we give up by having glacial adoption of digital technology. And of course, there's a reason why it happens so slow in the housing industry. Here's the number of companies producing a product in a typical industry, and I'll highlight it right there. On the scale up to 150,000, what you see essentially is hardly a tiny amount of companies that make most other products. So there may be 15 car manufacturers and 6 computer manufacturers, and you can go on and on and on. Most industries, 10, 15 are the major producers. In contrast, housing has about 50,000 home builders plus, and then remodeling contractors, another 50,000 plus. And it's so fragmented that the producers lack core competency and resources to digitize. They're just too small and don't have anywhere near the kind of funding assets you need to truly hire the best digital experts to take the time to digitize the product. There's so many things that are just killing the ability to digitize in the industry. And yet we have digital technology waiting to be used. So I want to talk about 4 innovations that can remove the pain from those 5 crises. User experience optimization, mass customization, software as a service aggregator, and offsite construction. So a word about user experience optimization and switching to a user experience business model is best, I think, understood with this quote from Steve Jobs of Apple computer fame: if you keep your eye on the profit, you're going to skimp on the product. And that's exactly what the housing industry is all focused obsessively on: profit. But if you focus on making great products, and I add with great customer experiences or user experiences, then the profits will follow. And just as a validation of this business model, you can fit all the products that Apple Computer makes on a conference room table, and they have more money in the bank than the US Treasury. The profits just follow once you just are industry leading in user experience. And we see it from all sorts of data. Here's one study that looked at 11-year stock performance for all these major companies. And what they found was, in fact, there's a user experience imperative. There's 3 times financial performance advantage for UX leaders versus user experience laggards. Even the Standard & Poor's 500 are about 60% behind user experience leaders. What an amazing opportunity to position yourself as an industry leader by targeting and focusing almost obsessively on user experience. But not only is it more profitable, it's also an amazing resilience advantage. 3 times advantage, again, for all the companies that were user experience leaders versus laggards. And this was during recessionary periods with shallower troughs and quicker recovery. And I would bet if we could track the housing industry user experience leaders, we might see the same data. But essentially, this is another study by McKinsey just looking at resilience. So the data backs up, again, the observation. And so when I got on that, when I had that lightning bolt hit me, when I was getting on a plane and I was finishing and wrapping up some training with hundreds of builders in California on the thermal bypass checklist, the epiphany that hit me was this basically, was that housing has 5 key user experiences that need to be optimized. And that I can convert this, well, first, the community design, performance, quality, and sales. And I can convert this to a kind of a benchmarking tool by simply changing it into a spider diagram, where 0 means it's a experience that's just not being addressed, and 5 means you're absolutely doing a great job with the experience. And when I got on that plane and the lightning bolt hit me, this is what I was observing, going to thousands and thousands of homes being built in this country, with the privilege I had running a national program, was that housing was suboptimized. Community design, design of the home itself, the home performance, home quality, home sales. When I looked at virtually every aspect of the industry, benchmark it to what it could be, this is what I came up with. And this is what I was doing with my time. I was moving high performance builders up one segment of the user experience. I knew that would not get the job done. That if you didn't deliver a total user experience, I couldn't help all the builders I was vested in, high performance, green, zero builders, be industry leaders. So this is what I've been devoting myself to with Housing 2.0. And what it is effectively is a user experience optimization framework. It's a process so you consistently get to a great consumer experience. And what I do is I lay out a framework from which every builder can use maybe as a basis to come up with their own customized framework. Mine has 5 user experiences, 19 strategies, and 150 best practices. So for the community experience, I lay out 3 strategies, 1, 2, 3 segments of the pie, and 21 best practices. For design, I lay out 5 core strategies with 50 best practices. For performance, I lay out 5 strategies with 42 best practices. For quality, I lay out 3 strategies with 20 best practices. And for sales, 3 strategies with 21 best practices. And for green builders, you've got to recognize everything you're doing to do a great job with green will probably get you these 3 slices of the pie, which are building science, energy efficient, and health. Many green builders will also do the other 2 segments, which are resilience and water efficiency, but those are often a lot less attention in the building science, the energy, and the health. Those seem to be the predominant focus. And I will promise you that resilience and water are going to emerge as ever increasing priorities. But there you go. We have a lot more pie to do when we do green. And so the reason why I'm so confident that the user experience optimization that I just go into tremendous detail with Housing 2.0 is such a sure thing is because it helps deliver consistently all 5 key user experiences: community design, performance, quality, and sales. It's a process to do it over and over again. And the reason why affordability is better is in the process of laying out those best practices, tremendous attention is also devoted to all the opportunities for less waste and more simple that can reduce housing costs 15 to 25%. So this is why user experience is a sure thing for me. I just connect the dots. And then the next one I want to talk about in terms of innovation is mass customization. I'm sure all of us would love to have custom tailored clothes and an expert tailor come and fit us and make our suits and our pants and our shirts and all our clothes. But that's not practical. It's just way too expensive for like 98% of the population, 99%. So what we do is we buy mass customized clothes. We go and we get the style, we get the right fit, full or fit or trim or whatever we need. We get the measurements we need, and we basically buy mass customized clothes. And so at like a tiny fraction of the cost it would be to have a tailor, custom tailor the clothes for us individually. So we're completely mass customized with clothes. And I'm suggesting the same opportunity exists in housing. And so all the same concepts, you have these building blocks that you optimize, and you can infuse it with a lot of world-class expert solutions, because you're going to amortize those building blocks over thousands and thousands of homes. And then you're going to have what's key to this is the strategic design choices that have the illusion of full customization, but are in fact very easy and low cost to implement. So the result is diverse choice, rich streetscapes, rich interiors, huge savings. Example, this is a mass customized product I found in Libertyville, Illinois. Streetscape was a developer, and he moved on to become DigiBuilt, a digitized service provider for the industry. And what you see with Streetscape is a development that's all built on 6 modules, A, B, C, D, E, and F. And here's a first floor plan and a second floor plan. You see how those modules basically stack up. And so there's modules A, B, C, D, F. One is a great room, one's a stairwell, a parlor room, bathrooms. Up above on the second floor, A, B, C are again bedrooms instead and bathrooms, but they're always building the same blocks that can be fully optimized with world-class expert design, health solutions, smart home technology, lighting, color, landscaping, always embedded in those building blocks. And then you have these cores that you build, kitchens, bathrooms, over and over again, always using the same basic cabinet modules and the same bathroom modules, but you can interchange moving parts to give lots of diverse customized choices. Let me show you in the X-ray how that works. The same 6 building blocks look like this because there are 2 or 3 choices for number of stories, for roof truss configurations, for pop-out windows, for siding trim, and color packages. In other words, the cosmetics that you just slap onto the building blocks can be interchanged for all this diversity. Excuse me. And this is what the actual project looks like, School Street, Libertyville, Illinois. So this is production housing, and it almost looks like a custom street. One of the things I teach in design modules, by the way, is landscape architecture can easily trump building architecture because as streets mature and the landscaping matures, that becomes a predominant first perception. But look at the architecture here, how rich and beautifully it works. We can go through the floor plans and why they're also good designs, but that's a separate course. So it's easy for me again to connect dots and say this has to happen, because now what we're doing is we're going to really have resources to infuse those world-class experts into that optimized user experience, because we're going to keep building those same building blocks over and over and amortize the cost of world-class experts. By the way, let me tell you, as an architect for over 25 years, what kept me awake at night was not that I wasn't a good architect. I knew I was good, but I wasn't the best at so many things. I wasn't the best building scientist. I wasn't the best health expert. I wasn't the best interior design person. I wasn't the best landscaping. I can go on and on with all the things I knew I didn't know or didn't know to be the best. And now I can bring in the best. And because I amortize it, because it's used in those building blocks, it will get so much production that the cost for the expertise drops so much, makes it possible. And then again, we're going to take the same waste and simplicity benefits for affordability and integrate those into standard building blocks. So that's how mass customization works and why I believe it has to be our future. We build a level of customization we just cannot afford, much like we can't afford tailored clothes for the mainstream buyers. I don't believe we can afford the customization we currently have in how we build homes. The next is software as a service aggregator. So here are 50,000 home builders. Just, let's say we collected them and put them all in one place, and they all have tremendous pain because they're not digitized. They're slow. The design process is slow. The bidding process, project management. The quality suffers because they don't have expert solutions. They don't have construction documents that are easy to use for the trades and that are more comprehensive and are completely virtually built before it ever gets built in the field. And the bill of materials and scheduling are just tedious to do with current methods. And the cost for rework, waste, and cycle time. And what we're going to do is with software as a service provider is have a player outside the industry, much like Uber was outside the taxi industry, come in and be the pain relief solution. Faster design, bidding, and project management, better world-class expert solutions completely infused in the designs. Construction instructions instead of construction documents, completely tailored for the trades, and the bidding will be faster. It will be lower because they know exactly how much piping they need, how much ductwork they need, exactly how much framing and how it fits together, and the trim and how it fits together. The ambiguity that is in current documents goes away. Automated bill of materials, automated scheduling, cheaper because once you build it virtually in the computer, the rework, the waste, the cycle time all get better. And all that can be available to these 50,000 builders because they don't have the core competency. They don't have the resources to do this digitization. Someone outside the industry will come up and provide it for them. So that School Street, fully digitized, looks like this. And now I can easily have bill of materials. I can easily have my scheduling, and I can easily adapt the drawings almost instantly to have 2 or 3 stories, the different trusses, the different windows, the different porches, siding trim, color packages. Those are almost done instantly by the digital technology. The time, the effort it takes. I've watched this developer put together complete development packages in 2 weeks that would often take 2 months because they take the building blocks and they simply assemble them on the site plan. The waste that's embedded in the way we build housing is stunning. And when you see a digital home, you know when you see a package like this, that there are going to be less mistakes, less rework. You know, the plumber knows exactly how much piping they have, and the HVAC contractor knows exactly where the ducts go and the sizing and how they lay out. The work in the field is all done, so all they're doing is assembling and building faster. All the framing, the connections, every piece of how this enclosure is put together is nailed down, and all the finishes. And so you virtually build on the computer, and then when you build on the field, tremendous amount of benefits. You're building twice, virtual, then real, with all the benefits other industries are getting. We cannot not take advantage of all the pain relief this provides to the industry. So it's just connecting the dots for me. I'm seeing a few players emerge in this potential position as a software as a service aggregator. And basically what they're doing is now that you've optimized the user experience, you've optimized affordability, and you've developed standard building blocks, you are now BIM worthy. You are now ready to digitize because you have a product that's worth the investment and all the additional expertise and cost and time it takes to digitize. You're going to use it over and over again. And you'll have automated learning. So your product keeps evolving, getting better, almost based on data rather than on guesswork. And the productivity with the assembly instructions and the big data keep getting better and better. This is an easy prediction. Connect the dots. And lastly, I want to talk about offsite construction. There are 5 main options: kits, panels, which have a number of variations from just conventional frame panels to structural insulated panels, SIPs, insulated concrete panels, ICPs, precast concrete panels. Then there's modular whole building boxes, volumetric building, hybrids of panels plus cores for the very labor, trade intensive parts of the home, the kitchen, the baths, and even 3D printing, all competing to be the offsite solution, but all of them are faster, better, cheaper at scale. They reduce cycle time, they reduce trades tremendously, and at the same time, quality is like many times better than what we can do in the field. The accuracy, they're stronger because they have to be shipped. They're cheaper because of less rework, less waste, and at scale, we can't build anywhere near that cost in the field that we can in the plant. And one of the biggest cost savings will just be the cycle time savings. On the top, you have site-built construction schedule. On the bottom, you have off-site construction schedule. You have, let's say, the same amount of time for design, engineering, permits, and approvals. But then comes construction. And first, you have to do in site-built the site development foundations. But at the same time you're doing that, you can also be building the home and the plant with off-site construction. So the site-built guys have to do building construction and site restoration. When with offsite, you're just assembling the components in the field at a fraction of the time. And the net savings is substantial. Let's say 30, 40, 50 days, possibly 60 days. 45 days at $600 a day for average cost for a builder that you have to wait. That's like $25,000 of cost benefit right there, just because of cycle time. And look at the extent that we're behind all of the other major Western markets. in adopting offsite construction. By far, the industry leader is Sweden. They're about 85% of housing starts offsite. Admittedly, a small housing start market, but you see the potential for offsite to just take over. And you can't believe these are the best built homes in the planet that I've seen. The lumber goes in one, the logs show up at the plant, they get milled and produced into product and out the door shipped. The best built, most efficient, amazing best practices for design. They just go out to the market straight from the plant in Sweden. Japan's grown from 2013 to 2018 to about 20% from 17%. Germany's grown from 15 to 20%, UK from 7 to 11%. We're hovering around 2 or 3% in the US. But a lot of signals, changes are coming. Here's some examples of the choices you have in this country. BMC Ready Frame is a kit in today's version. I like to show the old Sears kit product. It's amazing what they sold at the cost they sold it for back at the turn of the century. But today a kit arrives on site. They take your CAD drawings, they produce every piece of framing, cut to dimension, numbered so you can't make any mistakes. E101 has to go next to E101. And then, of course, in the field, there's hardly any waste. It assembles faster. So kits are a great start. Panels take it to the next level. Some companies just do the walls. Some do the walls and the floors. This company does walls, floors, and roofs. I called it Frame Walls Plus. And again, the quality, the automated systems, the controlled environment setting, you just can't reproduce the capabilities in the field, in the plant with the capabilities in the field, the way these are assembled. This is in Tecra in Modesto, California. Here's SIPs. Again, I love the diagram on the right. Just look at that and you know that your quality control challenges are a tiny fraction of what you do in the field when you build a home. It arrives and it just gets assembled. And it's totally integrated. The structure, the insulation, and just the way it fits together, it's just incredibly faster, better, cheaper. This example here is Extreme Panel and their product. And then here's insulated concrete panels. You can see one person carries it. This is a innovation improvement from insulated concrete forms, much faster, it takes less reinforcing steel, it takes less concrete, but it's amazingly more strong than wood framing. It's more resilient, it's fireproof, it goes up fast, but just mostly for the walls is this option. And then there's precast concrete foundations. I don't know why this isn't used more. It's faster, better, cheaper. It's 5,000 PSI concrete versus 3,000, so it's almost waterproof. Just as it's manufactured in the plant, it's integrated insulation. It saves square footage in the basement for more conditioned space. It just is more water protection because you don't have a footing and you drain right to the drain tile outside the foundation. There's so many benefits, I won't go through them, but faster, better, cheaper just isn't happening. This stuff's just sitting idle. Volumetric building, again, is the most production you can do in a plant and then deliver to the site. In this case, the panels aren't finished. Other cases, they are. This is volumetric building companies. They have plans to grow tremendously across the US. This one really caught my attention. This is Autovol. They just came on the scene only in the last couple of years, but it's the most automated plant I've seen. At a 400,000 square feet, they dedicate 100,000 square feet to 53 ABB 6-axis industrial robots. So it's one of the most automated plants I've seen in the country. And then they integrate all these software capabilities of unlimited variations in walls and ceilings. And the schedule is so fast. And so they automate the basic panels. Then they do the details on these beds that are ergonomic. Then they assemble the panels into boxes, ship them, and install them in the field. Metrics unbelievable. This is the actual data reported by the manufacturer. The cycle time was about 40% reduction. That alone is just a massive value in terms of dollars for each builder. And just as an example, 160 modules were installed in 3 weeks. That's just so much faster than anything you could build in the field. And again, the quality, the accuracy, the strength, and it's 20% cheaper, at least in high cost markets, than a competitive product. Now layer in the value of the time savings for the builder and you probably get another 20% savings. And you start to see again where my 30 to 70% numbers I promise are achievable for each individual housing unit we build. So amazing data points are important. Hybrids are just, you make, again, the trade intensive core modules in a plant, and then the rest is panels. Here's a company, SurePods, that makes bathrooms for hotels. So this is just the beginning of the capabilities. You can imagine going to dealerships and buying kitchens and bathrooms, and then the builder integrates those mass-produced, mass-customized, completely expert-infused kitchens and bathrooms into their homes. They design their homes for those mass-customized building blocks for kitchens, bathrooms. It's so much faster, better, cheaper. I just went and purchased a standard counter for a bathroom renovation I was doing. So it was, you bought it pre-made, 5-foot granite, 2 sinks, 2 faucets, backsplash, and it was at least half the cost when I priced it out buying individually the granite, the sinks, the faucets. So that was just one small personal example of what happens when you mass customize building blocks that you repeat over and over. And if I didn't get the exact perfect granite I wanted, I didn't care. I just got over 50% cost savings, and I loved getting those savings. So last option I want to show is 3D printing is coming up, has some interesting possibilities. It's almost like taking your printer you have for your computer and having the same thing dropped in the field, but instead of printing ink on paper, in this case, it's printing concrete. You can also produce composites and other things with these printers and make the homes, usually in the field. Some manufacturers make them in a plant. So it might be a misnomer calling it offsite in all cases, but you get the idea that the capabilities can be very interesting with this last option. So this is a no-brainer for me, right? This has to happen. Faster, better, cheaper, off-site construction. At scale, it's going to be lower and lower cost, particularly as they put in more automated systems. Just the sheer value of the waste and reduction, cycle time benefits, quality, rework, and not having to worry about trades as much that are just the kryptonite for the builders that are out there trying to figure out how to manage their business. My builder friends are telling me right now is more stressful than what it was for them during the Great Recession, 2007 to 2010, because of all these factors, these crises that are converging on them at this time. So when you put it all together, basically, this is my future of housing, just by connecting the dots, all because user experience optimization, mass customization, software as a service aggregator, and off-site construction together as a system address all these pain points. And they almost sequentially build on themselves. You optimize the user experience, now integrate that with mass customized building blocks. Now it's digital ready, so bring in the software as a service aggregator and start integrating those mass customized user experience optimized solutions with off-site construction. So this is the opportunity I see for some real disruption in the industry. What can green do to adapt to changes looming ahead? Okay, this is a disruption that's happening. What can I recommend to you guys? And I'm going to start with first, green builders and architects. I think the first big challenge is to transition your business model from just thinking about cost and profit to the user experience and let the profits follow. And that begins with getting your own customized, optimized framework. Housing 2.0 provides a kind of a massive amount of research and observations from the field collected for you to start choosing from. But every builder will have their own preferences, their own market conditions and market research and disposition to change. So you have to figure this out for yourself, but you need to get on this path to being focused on the user experience and making all your decisions based on how to extract waste and complexity out of your projects and reinvest that waste and complexity into better user experiences. Second, keep exploring opportunities to mass customize, where you can provide virtually the same apparent customization at a tiny fraction of the cost. I would start with getting building blocks. So you're building kitchens and bathrooms over and over again and fine-tuning every aspect of them for cost savings, waste reduction, simplicity. And we do this with builders, and we've seen some amazing benefits doing that. Track the availability of the emerging software as service aggregators, and you want to bring them on when you have BIM-worthy designs, because now it's going to be worth their investment that you make, because you're going to use those same designs over and over again. So when project A is digitized and project B comes on, uses the same building blocks, but now it's going to be, instead of Cape Cod architecture, Craftsman, or Mediterranean, you can make those easy adjustments. And then evaluate your offsite options, but you've got to do the math. A lot of the cost savings aren't evident just by comparing a SIPS bid package to a framing package. You've got to look at all the costs and benefits, and you have to allow for lessons learned. The first time doing SIPs versus the second time will be a huge discount in the amount of effort and time it takes to do it once you learn to do the new innovations. So that's my recommendations for builders and architects. For green programs, which is where I come from, first of all, I think green certification programs should start realizing that they have to include much more broader training than just how to do zero or green or building science. You have to deliver all 5 key user experiences. We all want your partners to be the industry leaders. So I'd love to see the green programs out there work with programs like mine to deliver guidance how they can be user experience leaders. Also, we have to start being disciplined about our award programs and recognition programs. We have to be really diligent about adding criteria for user experiences, for totally prioritizing green projects, zero projects that are also great communities to live in and great designs, making them prerequisites. Because if we give recognition to projects that don't deliver a top user experience, we're creating a track record that green doesn't meet user expectations. We have to showcase that the best projects that we have to feature also deliver great user experiences. On research programs, we have to also focus on mass customization, offsite construction. And a key thing with offsite construction, the last bullet, one of my biggest frustrations at DOE when I left was the offsite construction focus predominantly was on research, when really it's not a research problem. You know, when you have a hammer, every problem's a nail. And we really were a research program, so we thought offsite was a research need. There were some kind of discussions about prizes possibly, but it should have been the top priority. What we need to do right now is just aggregate the market for the offsite guys and give them the incredibly rigorous user experience targets and cost targets, as well as performance targets, and say, if you can meet these, we got these 20 builders aggregated, or this whole affordable housing group of buyers organized to buy your product. So we need to be functioning more as a broker, aggregating demand, and then putting out prizes with these amazing targets that I know the offsite guys can meet. And that will, in turn, knowing they have sure demand, make them invest in the infrastructure to meet those impressive targets. The last slide I want to talk to before I wrap up is, for affordable, we have to realize this is as or more important than for any other segment of the industry. And so we think we're building sustainable housing because it's green, but it's not sustainable if the communities aren't going to also be sustainable for living for low-income households. And if the designs aren't sustainable and provide decency of storage and outdoor space and other needs that people have. So we have to set up user experience optimization training for affordable housing programs. They have to deliver the experience as well. Otherwise, you look at the old public housing projects that are being torn down, it's because the user experience was so bad. And we have to shift the focus from first cost to all 5 user experiences and recognize that that's a critical path for low-income households to have any chance of asset growth. If we're just building them a shelter to live in and not homes that have decent user experience, they can't have any hope for asset growth. And more importantly, I believe if we apply the best practices that I like to teach to, we extract the cost savings, waste, and complexity, and invest that in those user experiences. And we have to also get the affordable housing segment to maybe be some of the first to invest in the future of housing. Habitat for Humanity and other affordable housing groups have certain basic home designs that are really ready to go to a software as a service company and be digitized. If we first go after the user experience optimization and integrate that into them. And leverage, again, offsite construction with aggregated demand. If Habitat can get all of its affiliates in a certain region to commit to buy homes at a certain performance level, cost level, and user experience level, and then go with that aggregated demand to the offsite players in that region, there's some great exciting possibilities, I think, to how we can get amazing benefits to offsite to affordable housing. Same thing with state housing programs and other programs out there. I think affordable housing for me is just one of the most important segments of the industry. I'd like to see also really come on board with better user experience and all these future solutions. So there you go. That is the future ahead. I welcome any questions or thoughts. Again, in terms of resources with Housing 2.0, the book, the workshops, the action groups, and thought leaders, this website can get you hooked up to all those. And especially with the generous offer of our sponsors that Brett mentioned, try to take advantage of the free workshop offer that is now available, I think, to this group that's on this webinar today. And if any of you want to reach out to me directly and have questions anytime, there's my contact information as well. I am vested in your success if you're a green builder. I spent 25 years trying to move the industry in that direction. I just am absolutely excited about making you guys be the leaders of the industry. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Sam. Real quick before we get to some of those questions, and there are a couple questions, a lot of commentary coming in, and we invite you to put some more questions in. But real quick, as a reminder for those of you who want to ask, yes, you can watch this again. You can reference it again. You can share it with your colleagues. We encourage you to do that. You can find it on our YouTube channel. If you subscribe, you'll get an instant update. You won't have to remember to go there and look back. You'll instantly get it, and all of our other sessions that come up too. So, and then real quick, for those of you watching this in the future, not right now, on demand, if you're on our YouTube channel, you got to head over to our Thinkific platform or USGBC or whatever platform it might be on. Take that quiz, get an 80% passing rate, and you'll get your continuing education that way. For those of you watching live right now, you will get a certificate sent to you from certs@gutenbergcerts.com. It's probably headed right to your spam. I know how it goes. That's where I send everything to. So anyway, check your spam, mark this as safe. You'll get that here in a couple days. And again, a huge thanks to all of our sponsors, our board of directors, our volunteers, all of our speakers, Mitsubishi, April Air, and all of our top tier sponsors who allow us to do what we do and keep putting these sessions on. So Sam, let's kind of get into the offsite, right? The term offsite, there's a lot of conversation about that, what it means. It's certainly a loaded term that, could mean a lot of different things. And let's get into something real specific from one of our members here, talking a little bit about, 3D printed homes. Is that going to be a direction as far as, I guess that is theoretically on-site, but kind of in that same idea that it's a new way of looking at construction. In their case, they're wondering, can it be used for net zero, passive house, ways to do geoconcrete? What are your thoughts on that? Is that part of the conversation here?
Sure, Brett. First of all, 3D printing is the offsite option I'm most uncertain about in terms of how big its growth potential is going to be. There's some segments where it's really tailored to, I think, more than others. So affordable housing, I think, has some really interesting possibilities, but it does require certain climate conditions, particularly for the ones that are built outdoors. It requires certain topography conditions. You can imagine how hard it is to bring those rigs on sites that are more topographically challenged. And but it has amazing options you don't have in terms of other types of offsite, in terms of geometric flexibility. You can use curves in ways you can't with others. you can integrate systems even more easily, and do lots of things with trim and details, because you can almost print this thing to do whatever it wants to do. And even in the plant, you can't do some of the things that offsite can offer you. So, but I think it's just tough to predict that one. So I watch it. I'll see how it evolves. I see some interesting products right now that are from a plant shipped on site, and it's 3D built, and it's a really nice off-grid retreat that you can drop in almost any location. So we'll see how it plays out. But in terms of the larger question, in terms of integrating high performance, building science, green recommendations, I think offsite is just much more able to do that. And the reason I say that is what we know with high performance homes is we add tremendous risk. Once we make homes more insulated and more airtight, they have greater challenges when it comes to moisture control and more risk from moisture control, because we have colder surfaces and more wetting potential and less drying potential. We have more comfort challenges in buildings that have low loads and longer swing seasons and less cycle time. And then we have big, more indoor air quality challenges because they're more airtight. And so I think all the details that go to managing those risks can be done better in a plant than they can in the field. You have so many moving parts. You have to track and do quality assurance on so many different pieces. I think a lot of that will be easier in the plant. In addition, I think it'll be easier to specify a lot of green products that are, let's say, low chemical content products, and make sure you're getting them and installed properly. You'll just have more control. So my prediction is it'll be a lot easier to do high performance in the plant.
So, on that point, we were talking about, some concerns about embodied energy and embodied carbon, and, speak to that, but sticking with the offsite approach, there's general concern about the transportation costs and energy sources, right, to move these things along. And that's, part of the embodied energy, though I'll admit a small part of it, as far as, before the operational phase. So, I mean, is that a concern about, pollution and energy use of transportation from offsite, or is that, compared to building it currently, maybe better?
It's a great question, and it has a lot of different ripples and how to answer it. Let me first say that if your focus is offsite, some options are incredibly better in the plant than they are in the field. We know with embodied energy that there are three main culprits. It's concrete, it's steel, and then it's also some of the more greenhouse gas abusing foams that go into homes. Everything else has embodied energy, but they're so much smaller. What always amazes me is how complex we're willing to make the whole embodied energy effort to be addressed in homes. I mean, if you can address those three embodied energy abusers fairly effectively, that's like an 80% solution at a very small cost. When we go to trying to measure and calculate the embodied energy with every single component going in the home, we're going after, we're not keeping our eye on the prize. We're worried about detail that is not really worth, I think, worrying about. So take something like that precast concrete foundation. That's an instant 70% reduction in concrete. It's so much more efficient because the rib construction and the inherent strength of how it's assembled in large panels results in about 70% less concrete. And you don't need the footing because of how it's assembled like a box beam on the ground. So right away, I just make that choice. I get rid of 70% of concrete in the home. Steel is easy to get out because it's just as easy to design with advanced engineered lumber solutions compared to steel to manage most of the loads, and particularly if you make it a priority in your design. And then the foams are easy to avoid. Just use the less abusive foams or rock wool or wood fiber insulation. Even fiberglass is a little bit lower than the foam. So we have to not worry about being perfect. Perfect is the enemy of the good. And so my recommendation when it comes to embodied energy is focus on the three core embodied energy problems, which are steel, concrete, and the foams, and call it a great solution that's not perfect but gets you where you want to be. And then I think the plants can adapt to that very easily. Again, you can choose plants that use engineered lumber, which are less resource intensive. CEUS uses about, I think, 60% less wood than a wood frame house. And all the wood it's using is small growth forested lumber that's cut into chips. And then, it's basically made into OSB. And then there are environmental glues and binders that can substitute for the current ones that are out there. There's a cornhole OSB product that looks really interesting that's made from corn waste. And so there's going to be lots of options to manage embodied energy costs. So do the big ones now, keep the steel out, use the concrete solutions that are already out there, insulated concrete panels, use very little concrete compared to insulated concrete forms. And also recognize in some cases that concrete is going to really serve you well in resilience goals that you may have, pest, fire, impact, flood. There's so many things that, wood is not insects love to eat it, wood loves to rot it, flying objects rip through it. When it comes to concrete, there are certain cases where maybe it's your right answer. So like I said, there's so many different ways to answer all these questions. And each one almost needs, each application, you have to figure out where your priorities lie and pick the best solution. But clearly offsite's going to be able to manage these as well or better than in the field.
Yeah, no, and you make a good point when it comes to green building. We always do try to remind people that there are trade-offs on what you're picking, and I appreciate our member Amani speaking out. Resilience is key as climate change effects increase. We can expect that things are going to get worse, and we're going to need that resiliency. And so there is that trade-off of embodied energy and resiliency with the concrete structures, to consider. And then also, and on that case is the site where you're building. And so that was the kind of other question and dialogue that was occurring during your session, was the idea that, these projects, especially when it comes to offsite, they're just being designed somewhere and then planted somewhere with less or maybe no consideration, or maybe it's just you have such a short time here to articulate that consideration, that people were concerned that it's, how is it being designed specific to that site? And especially with some folks who are interested in utilizing passive solar to hit net zero targets, maybe are these sort of offsite projects really being designed appropriately to do that?
Well, I believe they can be. They might not be right now, but in many cases they are with some of the new players that are doing some real exciting work. I won't mention any specific names, but there's some really special new entries into the offsite world, and they can optimize the product for the site just as well as the field design product. Well, a field built product can be optimized. So I don't think, I think the challenge is learning curve, getting past the learning curve, starting to work with offsite and see that the capabilities are just as good if you learn the system. It's like not quite a new language, but it's definitely a new set of rules that you work with to get to the same desired outcome. But that's faster, better, cheaper.
So you mentioned sort of these 5 crises and 5 solutions and
4 solutions.
4 solutions. And we have the what we call sort of the 5 pillars of green as a focus, and trying to reconcile these two together. I'm curious, I wonder, I'm just thinking, you have builders in one sense, like maybe a lot of those 5-star builders I was wondering about, they might be really good at getting 5 stars because they have good I've heard like sometimes just kindness, right? Like being kind, is a good thing. It gets you connectivity, having sales, being responsive, being affordable. But we've seen a lot of that. And then you look at the home on the back end and it is not sustainable in any way. But nobody, a homeowner, someone who's not doing this all day like you and I, they don't know what they don't know, right? And so maybe they're willing to rate a builder 5 stars because they've done all these great things. They're good people, but they miss the whole sustainability aspect. So how do you, I get what you're saying. Like, we need to build those other pieces into green building too, because we get so focused on these things that, nobody sees, nobody cares about. So it's hard to sell. I guess, just speak to that a little bit, where that conflict can be, or, how we have those conversations.
Great, Brett. First of all, I think I will challenge the premise that home buyers can be so engaged by salesmanship that they will give a high rating to a builder, a peer review rating. I think once you lay down your life savings, $500,000, $600,000 on a largest purchase of a lifetime, you're going to tell it like it is. If the home had lots of quality issues, if there's not enough storage, if it's the neighborhood is not a great place to live, if there's mold, if there's comfort problems, there are health problems, all those things are going to basically manifest themselves in how people respond. The biggest issue with the survey right now is it's done, I think, 3-4 weeks after you move in. They kind of come in and they do the survey. And so my hope is the industry starts getting a peer review rating that's based on at move-in and then at a 6 or 12-month window after people are in, to get even more accurate. But I think you're going to get pretty honest answers on something as emotional and as scary and as stressful as a home purchase. You're not going to just, like, sometimes my car mechanic says, give me a 5-star rating so I can keep my job. I'm inclined to give the mechanic a 5-star rating. But if the builder didn't deliver my expectations, I doubt the buyer is willing to do that. So I'll challenge that. But in terms of the larger question, what I'm saying is that green is a must-have. Green, zero, high performance, we can call it what it is. It is a must-have. But it's recognizing it's one of 5 must-haves. I think community is a must-have, design's a must-have, quality is a must-have. And when I say sales, I usually speak to the missing ingredient in the industry, which is sales service. We kind of hit and run. We sell the home and we kind of run away from the home. There's a whole service opportunity in housing, much like the car industry, that will not only help you maintain your reputation because your product will be maintained better and the buyer won't do all these crazy things that undermine its satisfaction. And they'll get revenue for doing it, and they'll have constant relationship with a incredibly satisfied customer if they do the other optimization. So, engineering service into the industry is a whole missing opportunity. But if you do those 5 things, every one of them is critical. I show in the book how just losing one of each of the experiences decimated major companies because they dropped one of those 5 key experiences. And there were companies that we trusted, we loved, that were just growing off the charts in satisfaction. They dropped just one of those experiences, and then everything collapsed on them. And it took years and years to come back, if they did come back. Right. And so, so that's the awareness I'm trying to get across green buildings. Not that green isn't important or any less important, but we teach you to think of housing as a system, right? With building science, it's all these control layers, and they all integrate with the structure and the mechanical, and everything you're doing is all integrated. Well, housing is a system as well. It's 5 experiences that got to be integrated together. You cannot be over-focused on just one, even if it's something as important to the planet as green, because it's more important that you are successful and you are an industry leader.
Yeah, and I really appreciate, as you articulate the service part, and I really, kind of gets into operation and maintenance, right? And it ties really closely to the green building world, because there are more and more requirements. And even now, about green programs that have operation and maintenance tracking data that goes on for years to ensure this, because what good is it if we build a home like this, turn it over, and it's not operated correctly? You're going to have inefficiencies, you're going to have health issues. So I think those two actually go really well hand in hand. And I'm curious how much you're seeing, people actually following up with their clients to ensure that the energy score target they said they would have is being met, that, there's actual good air quality in their home, not just that they say it is, but it's there. that there's the durability aspect, or here, let me give you this service to help you maintain it. Do you see those two being connected at all there?
Oh, yeah, substantially. And I've had some wins getting builders moving to a more service-oriented sales business model. And we've actually had great success forming an EBA working group. EBA is the Energy Environmental Building Alliance.
Right.
We have an EBA working group just around service and extended warranties and all that, and they're working and researching. And so, but it's slow. Admittedly, this is a tough one for home builders to actually do longer warranties, to figure out how to do a service program. So I know this is why, again, I always say Housing 2.0 has to be customized. You shouldn't feel compelled or forced or judged because you're not ready for every best practice that's laid out. But I know that if you do good service on such an important product, there are huge upsides for the investment you make. And so I'm excited that there's some uptake, but we have a long way to go, to be fair. I think the service side of the industry is so lagging every other industry I know.
Yeah. And, lastly, we talked a lot about new construction, offsite new construction, converting everything over to that. But, new construction is expensive, and we have millions of existing homes that we say, in some ways are unhealthy, inefficient, unaffordable, not safe anymore for people, lead issues, you name it. And then we have millions of buildings now, people are working from home. They're not going back into the office. We have old churches we're seeing here in town getting converted. So adaptive reuse, renovations, how does Housing 2.0 help there? Is there going to be any more thought on that?
There is always in the back of my mind the interest in possibly a book devoted to existing homes. But essentially, there's only two paths to scaling how to manage one of the most substantial infrastructure issues in our nation, which no one talks about as an infrastructure issue, which is there are 110, 111 million existing homes. And like 90% of them are substandard, don't have state-of-the-art health capabilities, state-of-the-art building science capabilities and technology. There's so many things that are lacking. And all these things that we do to try to affect change are just niche solutions. They have no chance of scaling. So there's two ways to scale, which I'll just, if I throw something out for interest. One is to have a nationwide, what I call comprehensive attic upgrade. In every climate, in every market, without question, the attic ceiling interface is the most egregious, and it's something that can be upgraded with no cost penalty or disruption to the user. You can go in and do an attic upgrade and basically improve a huge part of why American housing stock is substandard. The bigger challenge will be the walls, because now you have to basically retrofit 4 control layers that are probably incomplete in 90% of the housing market. And so there's something from Europe called Energy Sprung, which is an automated, mass-produced kind of 4 control layer cladding solution, often with a core for the health aspects with filtration and ventilation and so forth, and often also with a electric heat pump, because now the loads are so much smaller, like a fraction. So the Energy Sprung approach and also the comprehensive attic upgrade as an immediate solution for which we already have the infrastructure to do it are the actual recommendations I have for what we do with the existing housing stock. Because we have to know that we cannot just put insulation in walls. And often when we replace windows, we rarely put in the pan flashing and the other flashing that we normally would want in an opening. And so there's nothing short of this kind of Energy Sprung approach. And when you do it at scale in a plant with automated field measurements. They use drones and other high-tech sensor systems to measure the house, go straight to the plant, they make the panels. Again, it's off-site's the solution for retrofit just as much as it is for new construction.
Yeah, and there was some comment on there. I think isn't Rocky Mountain Institute doing some pilots in New York City on this concept?
Yeah, I did an executive call working with the DOE research program when I was there. And I got my partners in crime to not take the decision by the merit review process, but to award Rocky Mountain a grant to do this energy sprung type of strategy for DOE. And that's been progressing along. But I think it's going to take, the amount that's going into it is way too small. I think since that is the only solution for scaling, I would just have a whole research program around existing retrofits at scale devoted to an energy sprung type strategy. By the way, I think Europe does it wrong. They do the roof and the walls both. The roof is crazy to me to do because we can do the attic upgrade at a tiny fraction of the cost to do the roof panels. What we need energy sprung for is what we have no solution for, how to get the control layers in the wall. And so that would be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, good point. Well, Sam, we are at our time here. Can you just remind everybody again, where can people go to contact you or find out more information?
Yeah, well, thanks. You have the slide up now, I see. And so this one website address gets you access to all facets of the Housing 2.0 program. And again, those that would like to reach out to me directly, whether to set up working groups or to talk about anything we covered today, the email and phone number there are the best ones for reaching me. But this has been such a great opportunity for me to break away from DOE and finally do the kind of work I could not do in that government setting. So there's the contact information right there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, everybody, go out. If you don't win, if you're a GHI member and you're not a winner, make sure to go out, pick up Housing 2.0, a disruption survival guide. If not, all these other great resources, and we're going to get you access to the course too. So Sam Rashkin, thank you so much for joining us. It was good to see you out there again, and take care, everyone, and be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to check out all of our courses available online that you can watch anytime and anywhere to pick up your CEUs. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to get weekly updates and stay up to date on green building science courses, webinars, and home tours. Thanks again.